my name is Enrico Tolentino. I'm one of the senior applications engineer here, focusing on Enterprise PDM. All right, so we'll be talking about the toolbox, in general, and using it within Enterprise PDM today. Some of the things we'll be talking about are the different options we can use with the toolbox. Also, migrating an existing vault an existing toolbox. Setting up the vault for the toolbox as well, and managing the toolbox within the vault. And also a new feature in 2014 to automate refresh as well for our library folders. So some of the different options, there's actually just two main options, the complete integration using the toolbox in Enterprise PDM or partial integration. So, the toolbox, the custom parts includes a library of standardized components that users can insert into their assemblies. EPDM can manage the toolbox so that all the data management operations are performed automatically. EPDM manages both the part files and the toolbox folder. Once it's configured, users can then just point to the toolbox in the vault and use the toolbox as normally as they would before. So the key thing is that EPDM will automatically check toolbox parts out and in as needed so that the latest versions are used. It also adds missing toolbox parts to the vault, redirects assembly references to the toolbox parts within your vault, and also it supports the use of the option within toolbox to create parts, to create new parts within the vault. With the two methods of managing the toolbox, with complete integration, our first option, the entire toolbox dataset, typically found in your SOLIDWORKS data folder on your C drive or on your network, is placed in the EPDM vault and managed there. So the complete method's only available in SOLIDWORKS and Enterprise PDM 2010 and later. So both EPDM and SOLIDWORKS have to be 2010 or later. The partial integration is only the toolbox files that are referenced by the assemblies in the EPDM vault are managed by the vault. The toolbox folder and the source part files are actually stored outside the vault. So before 2010, SOLIDWORKS and Enterprise PDM, only the partial method was available. So even with 2010 and newer, you can still, it'll support the partial toolbox integration, but it's recommended that you use the complete integration even nowadays. So you want to use the complete. So with that, the different options is that the EPDM management will manage the toolbox folder automatically. With migrating existing toolboxes, your regular toolbox folder has those folders inside. Let me browse into my toolbox. So in this case, this is just on my C drive. I have this folder called SOLIDWORKS Data. That's the default location. And it has, the browser, copied parts, lang, updates, and so forth. So if you're using a toolbox, this could be in, different companies have different methodologies, but sometimes, your users could be using their own toolbox instead of a shared toolbox. And if you're multiple people using, sharing files, it's always best to have some sort of shared toolbox. So you'd want to not have users using their own toolbox on their C drive and instead use a network share. So in this case, these are the files. It's the same exact file, whether it's your local or your shared. And one key thing is that when you're inside this lang folder, as is an English folder as well, there's going to be a file called swbrowser.mdb. You want to make sure you copy that. Sometimes there will be a file in here called swbrowser.ldb. What that is just a temporary file that's present only when the toolbox is being configured. So if that file is present, you don't want to copy that into the vault. Copying it into the vault will prevent future toolbox configuration changes from being saved. So right now you don't see that file, just these two, swbrowser.mdb and .mdbold. So the process to copy that over is pretty simple. You can copy the whole SOLIDWORKS data folder into the vault. Let me open up another browser window here. And the vault we'll use for today is this one here, Enterprise PDM. And I want to log in as admin just so I have all the rights. Inside the vault, you can decide where you want to place it. In this case, I've had it set up so that it's in library. And I've already copied the SOLIDWORKS data folder into this location. It does take some time, so it could take, depending on how big your toolbox is, it could take 5-10 minutes or so to copy all that data in here. And if I look inside, you can see these are the files, the same files in our SOLIDWORKS data folder from outside the vault. Once that you've copied it into the vault, you want to make sure you check these files in so that everyone that has permissions can can see the files after they've been checked in. In this case, I already checked them in, so it lets me know that any of these folders do not contain any checked out files. So that's pretty much it. How to migrate your vault, your existing toolbox into your Enterprise PDM vault. Just copy and paste that folder over. So it's pretty simple to set that up. Next thing we'll also discuss is the vault setup as well. The vault setup is just the configuring it within Enterprise PDM within the administration tool. So let's head back into our administration. So here I'm logged into the vault inside the administration tool. First thing though, to be logged in here, you can just log in as your admin user, the default built-in admin, but you can also log in as someone else as long as they have the administrative permission of can update toolbox settings. Let me find that here. Right here, you need to have this permission to be able to make the changes within the administration tool. The default admin user will have that automatically turned on, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you're trying to log in as someone else in the administration tool, then you need to make sure that they have that permission. So here's the toolbox node inside the administration tool. Just need to double click that to open up here. And here's that, the complete integration within the toolbox. You need to turn this checkbox on here. And down here, it says when accessing the toolbox, use permissions from, your logged in user or a particular user here. That's just so that maybe that your library folder, maybe you have only your admin user or something like that has permissions to modify and check files out here, whereas everyone else within our work group has only the ability to read files from this location. But when you're making new toolbox configurations or parts, you need to be able to create new files and check them into this location. So in that situation, if not everybody has read-write access into the library folder, you want to just when accessing the toolbox, use permissions from the admin user. So that just depends. If everyone has permissions to write in the library folder, which wouldn't be that great to do, you want to kind of just have it limited. You just have read-only for all users within this folder, and you can select the admin user. to use permissions from when you access the toolbox. And then down below, that's when we want to, where we specify the root folder of our toolbox. So you can click the little browse button down here on the right, and it'll browse inside the vault. I put it in the library, and I can pick out this SOLIDWORKS data folder. I'll hit OK. And you can use a combination of this setting and individual permissions in the toolbox folder to access the toolbox parts. These permissions, remember, apply only to the use of the toolbox task pane. So remember, that's just this main permission up here. Only applies to the toolbox task pane. Once again, users who need to configure the toolbox in SOLIDWORKS will need to have their individual user permissions for the toolbox folder that allow them to read, check out, and add files. So that's for other users that need to kind of configure the toolbox altogether in this location. All right, and then from here, you have these two options that allow clients to change the toolbox option. Make this the default location. That's and then we have also the option of search subfolders for toolbox parts in assembly check-in. For that, we can turn the bottom one on. Okay. And from there, now the vault is set up to use that toolbox that we copied over. On the user end of things, you still need to tell SOLIDWORKS that your new toolbox location. So here is our SOLIDWORKS 2014. Just need to go to the options at the top, and inside here you have your node on the left side for Whole Wizard and Toolbox. And here I have my default toolbox location showing. All I need to do is just hit the browse button and browse into the vault for our new vault managed toolbox. So here's my vault. Here's that library folder, and I'll select the SOLIDWORKS data. Once again, one other thing is that the folder doesn't have to be called SOLIDWORKS data. You can call it however else you'd want. You can call it toolbox or anything. The name doesn't matter here. And then for here, we can, and here's that checkbox here, make this default location for the toolbox. It's automatically checked and grayed in because that's the setting inside ePDM. And then from here, if you want to, you can configure the toolbox even further. It'll let you know that the toolbox database is managed by ePDM and it must be checked out before configured. Do you want to check out the database now? We'll hit yes, and it'll check out those the database components. And then from here, and the real reason why I can do that is that remember I'm logged in as admin right now into my local view. I'm logged in as admin, so I have the permission to check the needed files out. And from there, the toolbox setup is just the same way as it'll behave as before. So you can select your standards as usual. Customize the hardware within the standards. Define your user settings, and this depends on how you guys want to work with files. Usually with a database, a data management system, you'd want to create configurations. This is just hardware. You're not necessarily, need to rev manage these files. So in that case, when you need to make let's say you need to use a new length bolt, it'll just create a new configuration for that part rather than if you create parts, it'll make a new part altogether. And the last option is if you use the control drag method from the toolbox, a configuration will be added to the master part file. And going to the other options, just adding permissions as well to modify the toolbox itself. If you're an admin, you can have set, so you can set a password for that. That'd be a good idea to do. And also just the usual toolbox options with smart fasteners as well. You can set that up as you see fit. Oop, don't need to do that. After that, you can just hit the save icon once you're done configuring it, and you can close out of the toolbox settings. So now you'd have to instruct all your users to set the your toolbox folder to the location within your vault. You can do that either telling them individually and having them doing it on their own, or you can use the copy settings wizard tool to help you set that up, deploy it a lot easier. To do that, it's just under the SOLIDWORKS entry, SOLIDWORKS tools, and here's that copy settings wizard. And then from here you can just save your settings from your existing SOLIDWORKS. All your system options and so forth. You can set that up to be saved out and then just deploy that to individual users. Okay, let's take a look here. So with setting up the vault, it gives you controlled access on who can do what within your vault. As you can see, you just need to specify the people that are able to modify that library folder versus everyone else that cannot modify the library folder and in turn make new toolbox configurations. So with managing the toolbox itself within the vault, it's kind of simple. There's usually two different methods. You can have one single user, maybe the admin user, or you can have a group of users that can manage your toolbox and your library files. With library files, kind of in the same discussion with your toolbox, you can add other folders within our EPDM library. So here maybe you have a folder for purchased parts, and then you can store all files you use maybe from MasterCard, any location, any source or vendor you can put in here. And since it's in the same library folder, you could set the permissions can be set up so that all your users have only read access to the files, but your admins have the ability to whether it's a single group, a group of users, or a single user, have access to create new files in this folder for purchased parts or reference documents, anything like that, rather than just the toolbox. So in this case, you can kind of manage both within one sort of library folder for all of those. So it just provides you with the management just proper security on with the library files and toolbox files to be stored within the vault. Last thing we'll discuss and go kind of in depth about it is the automated refresh. This is new in 2014 Enterprise PDM. Is this an option within your group's option? Let me show you within our administration tool. So maybe we'll go as an example at the bottom here under cache options. And it looks like just the folder options window looks the same way. Just there's 2 additional checkboxes on the bottom. One checkbox is to clear the cache during logout. Another is to refresh cache during login. The clear cache during logout, what that does, it'll clear the local cache in that assigned folder, meaning that it'll delete the files that are in that folder when the user logs out. Kind of a more of a security measure. Maybe you have a secure documents folder that you don't want users, if they're on laptops or something like that, if they disconnect from the network, you don't want them to have access to those physical files when they're logged off the vault. And it'll set that up. But the one we're interested in here is this refresh cache during login. What that does is that whenever a user logs in, all the files in that assigned folder will be set to refresh, so it'll grab the latest versions of the files rather to ensure that everyone's working on the newest document. So that's a good option for a library file or anything like that. There's also a highly requested feature from customers that they wanted their files to refresh automatically, maybe for a particular folder or the whole vault. Beforehand, there was no way to enforce that, and just force new files to always new files to be grabbed from the vault if there weren't any other new files. So here we'll try to set this up here within our library file folder within our vault. Just select it here. Refresh cache during login. And once again, there's also this other tab at the top, assigned cache options. It just lets you see it in the, as you see it right now in just the folder options. If you applied the permissions, the cache options to any of the other folders, it'll be hard to see which permissions you've applied. So that's why the assigned tab lets you see what folders you've assigned to have any of these permissions. So in this case, we only assigned one, that library folder. Shows up down below for the refresh cache during login. Hit OK. Well, let me make sure I'm in a group. Let's see here, group members. All right. I'll hit OK. And let me just go ahead and log off of the administration, the admin user, off the local view. And I'll log back in. I'm going to log in as myself here. I think I have some old notifications here. Okay. Usually, depending on the size of the folder, a pop-up window will show up, letting you know that it's refreshing the cache in that location. But since I guess there's not too many files, the pop-up window didn't show up. Let me just make sure it's set up correctly here. Engineering. Make sure I have the right user. Myself here. Cache options for the library folder. Yeah, just making sure that subfolders are also included. Let me log out one more time here. Okay. But yeah, usually if maybe the folders are pretty small, but if it's a bigger folder, you'll see a progress bar letting you know that it's grabbing the new cache from the vault, or the new data from the vault for that particular library folder. Or another way to double check, since maybe it's also that this folder is what's the word? Maybe it has updated all the files, so that's not gonna recache it anyway. So one thing we'll also do is here I'll clear the local cache. We'll remove the local toolbox files as well. And we go inside again. Let me log off. And here's that little window letting you know it's going to grab the latest versions of all the files. So it's the reason why I wasn't doing it before was that I already had the latest version of the files. So it's not going to each time automatically grab everything. It's just only because if you if you already have the latest versions, it won't do anything. But if you don't, it'll grab the newest from the vault. So it's going to go through that process here. So once again, those are the options inside remember, it's either group permissions or user permissions. You'll see under the left and bottom node of cache options, and you can choose to clear cache during logout and refresh cache during login. So with the automated refresh, it lets you make sure that your users are working with the latest data, whether it's the toolbox folder, library folder, purchase parts, anything like that, or anything else that you want to always have users working with the newest files available. Let's see here. So just to let you know, it's easy to set up within the toolbox. You get your controlled data as well to make sure that you have the right permissions on what users can do what within the library or toolbox folder. And then with the automated refresh, it ensures that there are no errors using older files that you don't want your users to have access to. All right. So once again, thanks for sitting in on this short webinar on the toolbox itself. Everyone else have a good day for the rest of the day. And once again, thanks for attending our webinar Wednesday on Enterprise and the toolbox utilization within the Vault. All right. Thank you very much.